Hi everyone! So today I'm making a fairy with yet a lot of trials and errors and experimenting, and it was so much fun. Even the bits that didn't turn out how I wanted, because in the end I'm very pleased with the results. As almost always, I used a Monster High doll for my project, but it didn't start out like a Monster High. I did another challenge and wanted to make something beautiful with this ugly doll. I got it from the thrift store, of course, but I think it was a cheap doll anyway. And maybe you can't see it from the reference photos, but I wanted to make a snow fairy. But as I compare this doll to a Monster High, I don't like the proportions at all. This body is so big and bulky. I should have used it for my cyborg. Oh well, let's try to make something out of her. But I have to figure out how to get the proportions a bit better and more attractive. So I cut her body up in little pieces. Oh my, those are tiny feet. And although I didn't know yet how she would pose, I really cut everything, so I had all the possibilities to reform her. And try to sand some of her bulkiness down. And yeah, that stuff goes everywhere. Making it easier for myself, I cut her head open to remove all the hair. What a difference between this one and the Monster High. They should exchange the heads maybe. My pure acetone was almost gone, so I tried nail polish remover with acetone in it. I see a lot of customizers use it, but for this doll it wasn't successful. So I used the last of my acetone to remove the rest. What a difference. I glued the cut in her head with superglue. And guess where my footage from my reindeer fairy went? Yep, here it was. So, what to do with my snow fairy? I really didn't like the proportions of this doll. I told you already. And I couldn't shave off more than I already did. I guess I have to use a bigger head. A Monster High head. Or the body from a Monster High and the original head. In any case, I had to switch them. And I chose the last combo. I was low on hands to swap, so I sanded these ones smooth. I cut down the neck pack. Heated up the head and put it on this body. These heads are just like Barbies, very high. I never liked that. I was so thrilled I discovered the Monster High dolls last year. I never heard of them till then. And its shapes are so much nicer than Barbies or this type of dolls. And what to use for a base? I didn't have anything in mind, but what I did have was a second candle holder from the one I use as a stand to work on. And since I'm doing all this customizing, I really am learning to make quicker decisions. So yeah, I will use this one as a base. I glued a wire on it the same way I did the other one with baking soda and superglue. And I filled it up with not dry, air dry clay. The gold I painted over with metallic silvery acrylic paint. And let's see how she's going to pose. Maybe I first have to know how the lights are going to fit here. Oh, did I tell you? I want her to have wings, of course. She's a snow fairy. And just like in one of the reference photos, I wanted to include fairy lights. I didn't have a clue how, but maybe I want the lights into the wings. Because when I put them all over her body, I definitely didn't have a clue on how to do that. So just in the wings it was. I glued her in a simple pose because I had my work cut out for me with the lights and the wings, so no need for a difficult pose now. And then I wanted to do all the 3D painting on her body. I had some relief paint I hoped I could use for this. It was a few years old, this paint, but as some paints dry out with age, this one just went more fluid. Not sure if shaking it would help, but I tried everything. Apparently I didn't film it, but it was not usable. So I have to think about a solution for my 3D snow effect I wanted. In the meantime, I started with the wings. I drew the wing shape. It's hardly visible here, but trust me, there is a drawing. And I tried to shape the lights on them. I glued everything with UV resin. Then I covered the wings with a layer of resin mixed with mica powder, so the wings would get a lovely whitish shimmery color. But I knew at this point I couldn't do the wings in pure resin. That would be too heavy on the doll, right? Just a thin layer of resin was not enough to cover the lights. And I didn't want to make clay feathers or foam feathers or paper feathers, but what if I could make the feathers from the resin? So I tried a few. Although the shape was hard to form and they didn't really look like feathers, I glued some on the wings. It was at this point my only option, and I made some more. And some more. And while editing this, maybe she isn't a fairy, but an angel. She's a snow angel. Meanwhile, I gave her a bit of body enhancements with an acrylic paint and baking soda mixture. And I figured out how I wanted to do the relief. I found some jewelry stickers. Jewelry stickers? I thought I could use for nice patterns because this 3D paint was really worthless. Although they were stickers, I also glued them on with super glue. And she's all dazzled up. I love it. Not what I had in mind, but good enough. I painted her with 2 layers of acrylic paint and a bit of baking soda, so the transition between body and the jewels are a bit smoother. I also loved how it gave everything a bit of a powdery look. And to enhance that some more, I also sprinkled some baking soda onto the wet paint, so you really get that snowy effect. I did the same with her stand. First covered it with gesso and paint and then sprinkled the baking soda onto the wet paint as well. And when the paint was dry, I brushed off the excess. Time to give her some hair. I had some weird hair left. Not sure I have enough, and more important, would this be nice and shiny? I could not get it nice and shiny. And the only 100% acrylic yarn I had was very thin, and I tried once already, and it was a real pain to work with, so I would rather not use it. and I would not get it long enough as I wanted. In the meantime, I did her face with Derwent Intense pencils and a bit with soft pastels. It was very hard because of all the relief and the powder everywhere, but I think I did okay despite all that. I drilled some holes in her head because at this point I thought I would make her hair from my homemade clay and wire. But when I wanted to start, I realized I had to attach her wings first so I could do her hair around them. Otherwise, maybe the wings were in the way of the hair. I attached two tiny pieces of wire onto the wings, with which I could glue them in the holes I made on her back. And I did this also with UV resin and made sure the resin got into the holes very well. Oh my god, I need an extra hand or two. I secured her wings some more with the resin as much as I could. And I covered the last bit with a few resin feathers as well. And I really need a third hand. So on with her hair. I shaped the wires in nice curly shapes and I covered them with my clay. But oh my word, how ugly. Either this was a failure from the start or I did something very wrong. Could I make her hair from EVA foam? Nah, also very ugly. But I had one more kind of yarn in white, but it had wool in it. But what if I styled it carefully with, let's say, watered down white glue? Or maybe that's not even necessary? So I tried that. And to not waste more time, I glue them on with hot glue, this time with more precision and care. Maybe I used too many strands, but overall I was very pleased with the results. Hopefully now I could give them all a nice long curl. First I adjusted the length by twisting the ends and pulling out some strands out of each one. Then I tried to curl each one with a large cylinder and my straightener. And then disaster struck. Oh, what else is new? The wings broke off because one of my cats knocked her over. Oh. I glued them back on with UV resin. It was not a very nice repair, but luckily her hair will cover it all, so no one is going to see it. Hopefully. So after 2 days of curling, no, not full days, but for me it felt like it, I could make something nice from all the curls. And with a lot of hairspray. No, I did not use the watered down glue. I think I made it work somehow. And then I think she's done. All the lights are still working, the wings are still attached, and I think her hair came out better than I could hope. So I'm very happy with her. And what do you think of her? I would really love it if you would tell me in the comments below. You know, it would also help my channel if you do. And if you like this video, please give it a like. And if you would like to see more in the future, please subscribe to my channel and hit the notification bell. I would really like it so much if I could one day reach the 1000 subscribers. And I hope to see you next time.